I'm a great fan of Downton Abbey, one of my favourite TV programmes. I miss it now it's finished, I've got to say. But you know, there's one thing about it that used to drive me nuts. At the beginning, every week, there's a picture or an image of somebody turning up an oil lamp. And when I look at that oil lamp, it used to drive me up the wall. My wife used to say I was driving her crazy because I'd complain every time. But do you know what? That oil lamp glass was black at the top. And you always see that on films. Pirate ships, black oil lamp glasses. Cowboy films. There you go. There's a winner. They always have oil lamps, don't they? They carry them around. Occasionally they throw them about and set fire to cabins and things. Well, every time the top of the glass is black. Wouldn't you think that they'd have found somebody? They spend all those millions of pounds on these movies. Wouldn't you think they'd have found somebody who knew what an oil lamp was supposed to do and who knew how to deal with it? All of us sailors know, don't we? I mean, most of us have oil lamps in our cabins, or I like to hope we do. I do. Even now, with my modern yacht, I've got two beautiful oil lamps in my cabin. They're modern Danish ones, but on my old gaffer rig boats, I always had oil lamps in the saloon, and they were the main lighting in the saloon. Well, before I start going on about the wonders of the oil lamps in my saloon, I'm just going to walk you through how to light an oil lamp. You'd think, oh well, you just do it, don't you? But it isn't quite that simple, and this is clearly what the people in the film industry don't know. Well, here's a good one. Lift off the glass. This is actually a rather fine one, and it's got two wicks. First thing I do, I wind the wicks up so I can just see them, so I know they're there. They're just peeping out of the top of the burner here. You won't be able to see that, but don't worry. All will be well. Strike our match, get it burning sweetly, and we just put the match to the wicks. That's the end of that. Then we turn the wicks down so they behave themselves. And then we turn them right down so they're just to say a light. That way they won't get too hot and crack the glass. Now we put the chimney in, get it right way around, and as the wicks burn, we just do them so we can just see them. There they are. A little bit of condensation will appear on the inside of the glass, and there's not much light coming out of this at the moment, and the glass is still cool. We're going to wait for the glass to heat up, so I'll chat on a bit while this glass is warming up, and then we'll be able to see what happens. We'll just put a little bit of flame outside there so we can just see it. There we go. In my traditional boats, I always had one of these big fellas with two 1-inch wicks on the middle of the saloon table, which stood in the middle of the saloon. Round the corners there would be 4 smaller lamps with slightly smaller wicks, and if you had them all burning perfectly, it was light enough in that saloon to read by. We're looking at a tiny room here, of course, a yacht saloon, with probably about, I don't know, perhaps 7 feet long by 8 feet wide, 10 feet wide, something like that. That would be it. But that gave you a beautiful warm light, a really nice light to eat by, a lovely light to drink by, and actually a good enough light to read by if you weren't too old and decrepit. I must say, these days I was starting to find that a bit difficult. So I always had a little electric light in one corner that I could turn up nice and bright if I wanted to read the Daily Telegraph, or perhaps if we wanted to do a bit of sewing or some fine work, because the oil lamps weren't really good enough for that. But for everything else they were great. And another real bonus, at night at sea, because of course they're all gimbaled, they swing about, these chaps were clamped down to the saloon table, and you don't use them at sea. Yeah, it's coming up, look, the flame's growing a little bit as the chimney warms up. At sea, you could have one in the galley, swinging on its gimbals, and you could turn it right down, like that, so that it didn't disturb anybody who was trying to sleep, and it didn't cast any light out into the cockpit to take away anybody's night vision. But when you came down for a cup of tea, you could turn it up and do everything you wanted to do with a lovely bright light. Just a wonderful thing. And now that this one's warmed up and it's almost up to running temperature, we can put its beautiful glass hat on. And look at that, any cowboy would be proud of that in his cabin, wouldn't he? So that's the oil lamp. But you know, even with oil lamps, it's not all win-win. I remember on one of our boats that we were sailing across the Atlantic on, we were bound for Brazil, Ros and me, on the little boat. No electric light down below really to speak of at all. And we didn't have much water either. So every day what we used to do, Ros would draw off half a gallon of water and she would put it into a half-gallon plastic jerry can. And that was our supply for the day. And actually we managed with that. And we used to top our tanks up. We only had 40 gallons. Sorry, I'm going off the tangent here. We're not talking about water. We're talking about lamps. So we'd have this half-gallon of water. Well now, we also had a half-gallon paraffin. Same thing. Looked just the same because the paraffin was clear. And one night Ros was feeling pretty tired and I wanted me a cup of tea. She was coming up on watch. She staggered out of her bunk and she filled the kettle with paraffin. She heated it up on the gas flame and she made my cup of tea with paraffin. Kerosene. Unbelievable. Took the tea bag out, chucked it in the dump and took my cup of tea up to me, made with paraffin. I took a deep draught of that and spat it over the side. I thought she was trying to kill me. But amazingly, it didn't blow up. That could have been the end of us, couldn't it? If that had taken fire, the fumes of the paraffin would have gone up and that would have been the end of it. I wouldn't be here now talking to you about the benefits of oil lamps. People think they're dangerous on boats, but they're not. They're absolutely safe. Just like a well-organised bogey stove is safe. A bit like motorbikes, really. Oil lamps. Nothing wrong with the lamps. It's the people driving them. And as for people who make the glass go black because they're careless, don't trim the wicks, turn them right up and behave like idiots, well, look at that. Look at my glass. Clean as a whistle. That's how it should be, you film producers. Take a note out of my book.